the Olympiad is something that we've been working on. And so there's this thing we've been working on called the Olympiad. It is a cybersecurity based technology. It's technically a DevSecOps tool. And for anyone who has been following me for a while, you probably know a little bit about what DevSecOps is. And then cybersecurity is just something that my whole channel's more or less about, anyways. And so all this time since, running YouTube, trying to run this company, notiaPoint, all these things, well, we had this idea that if you could get an appliance that could scale into the cloud, it would make it even easier to go serverless. Because I was, working in the corporate space, and people are like, oh, how can companies go serverless, and is it reasonable to go serverless? And now internet speeds are getting to the point, and internet services are getting to the point where it's becoming more and more viable for businesses not to have servers. And so nowadays, like, whether or not companies do have servers or development centers and they're trying to get assets and whatnot, it's like, well, if people are going to the cloud, that already can make it cheaper to an extent to develop. But then, what would make it even more affordable to develop is to find some hardware for the developers who work with the cloud stuff, even if they don't have, so they can get the benefits of having local resources while doing cloud development. Because right now we're at a time where everything's moving toward the cloud. That's just where it's going. And so since everything is moving to the cloud, we just decided, why not just help accommodate the process? And on top of that, it just is fun to do cloud hacking things anyways. So we put in a bunch of time to come up with a cloud hacking DevSecOps toolbox, basically. And so we basically have been working with a little platform called the Raspberry Pi. And when the Raspberry Pi 4 came out, it was this little tiny device. It's just a little tiny device that is really like, these things are like, this is just a case for one of these things, like one of the prototype kits. Like, these things aren't big. Like, they're little tiny things. And what happened when the Raspberry Pi 4 came out was, it was one of the most affordable and most highly standardized and most well supported open source hardware formats that makes it just cheaper for developers to do their work without needing to have like $4,000 servers, things like that, and all these bits. And I'm an ethical hacker, so as an ethical hacker, I'm like, oh, so you can develop in a multi-million-dollar cloud with these things because they're powerful enough, and as an ethical hacker, I want to make that a real thing. And so we did. And some cool stuff to go with all of that. I want to talk about just, what is this Olympiad thing that we've created. If you look at this little diagram on the left, one of the things that we've actually done is we started building out an actual data center of our own from our own kits that is designed to cluster into the cloud. And for anyone who's heard of Docker or Kubernetes, there are these new technologies that make it easy to make different types of hardware work together and collaborate together and be friends. And so let's say that you wanted to have a development center, or you're trying to learn cybersecurity at home, and you're just trying to make sure you have a good lab that's going to let you do everything you need to do. And then at some point, let's say that you might potentially need more hardware, more resources. Well, in the past, you'd have to, go get a newer, bigger, badder, beefier system and decommission your old hardware. Well, now you can keep your old hardware. You can take whatever hardware you're working with and just keep adding as you need, adding as needed. And so we were trying to figure out, like, what's the most affordable way for someone to just start with DevSecOps, start with cybersecurity, start with learning ethical hacking. What's one of the most affordable ways to start? Because I'm going to be real blunt. For those who have actually learned from me earlier this year, I think the less least amount of money someone spent was like $300 an hour to learn from me, and then I got a job in the end. So it worked out. It was worth it. But otherwise, folks are paying like $11,000 or $20,000 to basically be able to go and do classes that where they'd otherwise learn from me, and so on and so forth. But what if you didn't need $11,000 for a program? Because really, why did these programs cost so much? Because the hardware and the infrastructure to teach cybersecurity is very expensive. It's very expensive. And so what we did is we not only designed, so this little architecture right here, each one of these little chips, these little blue chips right here, represents one system. And in our case, we started building our system with Raspberry Pis, and we're going to scale this setup, but this is what's called a hybrid cluster. We have a hybrid cluster of 3 different clusters that work together, and then we're going to eventually start introducing, more hardware and then scaling into the cloud with tools like Kubernetes, because that's what you can do these days. With Kubernetes, you can, start with a Pi and then just cluster into the cloud and cluster into whatever other hardware that you want. And so we've decided to just make it just a painfully easy starting point for learning cloud. Build your own cloud at home. What's the best way to know how to hack cloud? Build a cloud. The process of building it alone, you'll know things that make it vulnerable. You'll know little things that make it complicated. You'll know little intricacies about it. That's a big deal. That's a pretty neat thing. So if I move my face real quick, I'm going to talk about some of this. So we've been putting together these little developer kits, and the ones that we've showed off in the past are these dual system. Basically, this is like a little mini Kubernetes supercomputer where it's got two little Raspberry Pis, but they work together. They work together to make one system that's more robust and more powerful than multiple systems. And, we decided to go ahead and just put together our own kits, our own everything, you name it. We'd already been working on software, so we were like, why not just make full-on developer appliances and developer kits for people who actually are trying to learn this stuff or trying to build these things for their own businesses. And so, we realized that people like customization, who are the types of people who like to develop anyways. So we're like, well, let's give people some more ways to customize their development experience. Because if you're a developer, you want to do it in style, right? And so anyways, and different people have different tastes. So some people don't necessarily like the colors. We'll come up with different designs and different colors over time. But this is what we've got in the beginning. And I think it's amazing. And so far, everyone who's gotten these has loved them, and everyone who's seen the designs has just we've gotten really good feedback on these. So we're just really proud to be able to just actually release these. So we sell these now, and I'll add in the description at some point. And so we're streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and we're streaming and Vimeo, I guess. So since we're just sharing to all these different platforms all at once, I don't really know which chat to follow, and I don't have enough screens for them all. So I might see if I can peek at some of the chats. But what I want to do is just really talk about what are we doing with these, and what are people doing with these, and then also one of the things that we're doing is we're launching a dojo, a DevSecOps dojo, now that we have all of this stuff, so that people can just continuously learn cloud development, learn how to build your own environments, build your own cloud at home, build a cloud for your business, build a cloud at home and for your business. And we actually got a request from a wonderful person, Randall Massey, was talking to me, and he thank you, Randall. We're gonna have to have a big shout out for you sometime, because without Randall, I wouldn't have had this conversation. It was like, hey, you teach us all this cool stuff, but I would really like it if we could have something that was monthly, where we could just keep learning, just keep learning every month. And I was like, well, actually, yeah, we could probably do something like that. And then basically we needed a little funding, and he was willing to help us out and helped us start planning out where we will be launching a DevSecOps dojo to teach DevSecOps for cloud development and cloud pen testing starting next month. And so that's one reason why we've drastically upgraded a lot of our streaming services and streaming hosting and all of those things. So we've been just trying to get real serious about just really trying to make all of this a thing, make all of this come together, make it all happen. And it is happening. It's happening fast. People are, picking these up. We're trying to get these built and distributed, and we make everything ourselves. The Olympiad, that's something that I built. It's all built from open source code with my team, notiaPoint. And then we built these cases ourselves. We did all the design ourselves. And our CTO, Jordan Anderson, is the one who built all of these, the cases in particular. And he just did a beautiful job. So I just also want to say a shout out to Jordan Anderson, our CTO, for honestly just doing an amazing job on the design of our systems. And then to also announce, we are coming out with sort of an extreme Overclockers kit where, we've shown off the cases before. So this is a case, it looks kind of like the others. But what's different about this one is it only has one Raspberry Pi in it. And this is our new model that we're coming out with. We're coming out with a new model for the Olympiad developer kits. For people who are doing development using our Olympiad model, make it a little easier for your development flows. Well, we decided if we don't have to have the real estate for 2 Raspberry Pis inside one of these kits, why not give it the beefiest heatsink we could possibly give it, since we already put some of the most quiet and powerful fans on the market in these little systems. So we decided to just put the biggest heatsink we possibly could, just take up the whole thing. And these are actually going out for distribution soon. So we are actually going to, these are actually going to be releasing soon. So thank you to all those who've been interested in our kits. And so this is just really exciting to us. So if you were to go to our website, we're going to do another Founders Edition launch for these new kits, because we have a few Founders Edition copies left of these developer kits, but to be releasing these are going to be a little lower cost, so a little more affordable, but still high-end developer kits for anyone who's kind of more in the high-end market for trying to learn high-end cybersecurity development for cloud. These come with workshops, so we don't just sell these by themselves. We sell them with full-on workshops. So our website is notiaPoint.com, and if you go to our website on notiaPoint.com, if I go over to our workshops, let's see, we have these special edition hardware kits. And so these are basically what you can get right now. These are our dual Pi cluster kits, where these come with 2 Raspberry Pis built into them, and you get to choose different types of colors. So that this is what we've been building, this is what we've been working on. This just consumes our life, and then the development and all the stuff to go with it. And so then the other thing that I've been doing is, if you have an appliance, we started with the software and all of that, then you have to have something to run it on. And so we did build our first little hybrid cloud, if I can find where I am. Log in for it all. So this right here is a hybrid cloud that we built. Now this looks a lot like what we've done in the past, and I did something to make the hybrid cloud angry. But let's see, I have, let's see, I can still show the dual cloud configuration. So we've got one cluster here. This is just showing just a generic cluster. This is our production cluster and development, basically just testing this out, and then as it grows we can scale this out as we develop what we want on it. Our development cluster is where we put all our resources right now, so this doesn't actually have that many resources, but as you can see, we have all these things built out. So this is one independent cloud that has nothing in it right here. And then we have another cloud running in our same ecosystem for, you probably don't know what you're looking at, but this is just another cloud. So we have two clouds that work together. If I can get them to go side by side. There we go. So both of these are just two separate clouds. So this is called a hybrid cloud. And, you know, kind of more interestingly, if we wanted to kind of visualize it in a different way, we could also just kind of take a look at it in terms of what all the little clients look like. So we've got two clouds right here. So we've got this Inner Athena production cloud, and we have this Gorgon Gaze production cloud. And all this is more or less, it's Kubernetes based. And it's Docker based. These use both Kubernetes and Docker. But the main thing that I really wanted to talk about is what's the point of all this? Like, why do we do these things? Because, you know, we have all these clusters. We've got hybrid clusters, dual clusters. We started selling clusters, teaching people how to do clusters. It's because cloud is where I come from. I did cybersecurity with cloud. I did security information event management. The first time I started helping engineer and build a cloud was in 2011. And from there, you know, got more into the security side of things. And then as like a cloud developer, I started doing more software development. And so DevSecOps is something that comes natural to just my background. And so I noticed a lot of companies have been trying to find better ways to have more efficient DevSecOps and development practices where you're also more secure. There's a lot less overhead in development when, let's say that you're a cybersecurity company and you already have to develop products and do things for your clients and all these things. Well, if your practices are secure enough, secure practices make it to where like your products and the things that you push out are less likely to get breached too. So you just out of the box have more security, just out of the nature of it all. So that is a lot of what we've been working on. And then something that, like, I have some pictures that I'll show because all the things are plugged in right now. I guess I could try to grab a camera to like show off like all the different parts around here, but what's going on with all these little clusters, like all these things right here, if I commentary on what's going on. So each of these little clustered clients are going to cluster, like these are two different clusters that we're running. So we've got a cluster here, and then we've got a cluster here. And then this cluster, interestingly enough, this cluster has multiple clusters in it. So this cluster is a Docker-based cluster. And then this cluster has a Docker and a Kubernetes cluster that are isolated. And then it has a Kubernetes host that's designed to just hook into Azure already, just in its existing design. So basically, if I wanted to work with Azure, I can develop in both Kubernetes and Docker with this one little cluster here. And so that's what this little thing on the left here is, where we have these blue items. We have three things right here. And then we do have an extra item, which is called a satellite. But like what I've been building with the Olympiad is just like a really strong DevSecOps flow for like a business. So if we were to look at this little diagram where it says the DevSecOps toolbox, where we have this thing called Gorgon Gaze, basically this is where we have a Linux client that, you know, it has things like allows you to get data. It's a data mining thing. Basically, if you know what security information and event management is, it's that. It's more or less a SIM-based system, and it allows us to basically gather information on security and data and whatever we're trying to do across our cluster with the way that it's designed, and we can send data to it, and it can also go and grab data for us based on what we tell it to do. And then we have this other system that is called a Cerberus system, and this right here is just basically a pure Kubernetes broker. And what a Kubernetes broker is it's a system that has at least one flavor of Kubernetes living on it with one type of container type. So Kubernetes is something that's weird. Kubernetes, you can have like two flavors of it on the same system with something called, for anyone who's technical, one's called Containerd and one's called Docker Engine. You can actually just run them both on the same thing. But otherwise, the point of having a Kubernetes broker is so that you have something that can manage getting your operations out to the cloud. And so we made a hybrid cloud to kind of represent the first step of that for just our tests before going to a bigger cloud. So these green systems right here, where, you know, this says prod on these, ultimately, whatever these turn into is what we would put over into, say, Azure or something. And, you know, we can develop everything in our own little ecosystem. And then as soon as this little production, like local production set of like clusters ready to go, and everything's ready for us to roll out products to customers or roll out updates that go live, then where we have this broker that, you know, we're calling the Cerberus host, which is this one right here. This host that's running Kubernetes, as you can see right here, it's running a lightweight Kubernetes running right there. This is the piece that is going to then take whatever's going on here and then provide synchronization over into a genuine production cloud. So it's basically like the production management broker of the system, which is a little confusing. But then we had to have a way that made it easy for developers to interact with their systems. And so we've come up with two really easy ways for people to interact with their systems, because, you know, since we can develop appliances, the nice thing about like our dual Pi clusters that we sell, because we sell these dual clusters, this little production mock-up right here, our systems can just run this whole little thing right here, our little like dual Pi cases. So let me pull those up again for visual purposes. So like this right here is like these green items right here, two little systems. Each one of these is representing a system, right? A little computing system. And so we have this, you know, green represents our green production system that's running right here. This is something that, like, whenever we have this like ready for giving products out, you know, we have software that we've built that we're proud of. It looks good. We like how it's running. It's efficient. We've ironed out enough bugs to feel good about it. Well, then we have this handy dandy little broker where we can just be like, oh, sweet. Okay, manage the release, go. And so the real kicker about all of this is it barely costs anything. Because I get the question of like, why are you doing all of this? It's just more affordable than just about any alternative on the market for the same amount of results. But because the overhead costs so low, like, we can just be a pure development shop because the cost of our resources is so low for the way that we're designing things, where we go either cloud or we go low cost local clusters. And we don't develop in the cloud, because here's the thing about the cloud. If you try to develop in the cloud, if you don't have a lot of money, you have to pay pretty much like every minute that you're in the cloud. Like, okay, so, and developers, I slept 1 hour last night, just to give you an idea. 1 hour. Just like, because I'm always trying to build the stuff. I'm always trying to do the things. I did a workshop earlier today where I literally built a pen testing simulation to show off, like, how do you build a pen testing toolbox? And then how do you build like an adversarial pen testing simulation in a Raspberry Pi? Like, or anything that can run Docker. So really the workshop wasn't even about Raspberry Pi. The workshop was a Docker workshop. It just so happens that Raspberry Pi is one of many things that runs Docker just fine. So anything that can run Docker, it's quite a thing. And to those who made it to the workshop today, thank you so much for joining. It actually went really well. Great questions. And it was pretty cool running like a cloud hacking simulation, showing everyone how to build a cloud hacking simulation. So that was a fun time. I'm all technicaled out now. That was probably the biggest part of the demo. So now I'm talking about like the softer parts, because my brain died. It was a 4-hour long workshop, 4 hours of containerization, OSI model, straight up live cloud construction. I'm tired. So, and one thing that we're going to do is we're going to be doing a lot more live stuff like that, like those workshops. And like I said, in November, we're going to release a dojo for those who want to keep up monthly skills and really get a lot more hardcore, because I've also started learning that those who watch us are hardcore, like really hardcore, those who watch us the most. So we're going to make a much more hardcore service for those of you who are a lot more like, are you already a senior developer? Are you already someone who does a lot of like code stuff? Are you already someone who does a lot of pen testing? Then our dojo's for you. If you're still learning all those things, then our kits are great to learn. So, start learning. We have workshops for people at all levels. Our workshops for beginners are free. So if you're a pure ground zero beginner, I don't want your money. I don't want you to pay anyone or us. Go learn for free. Go get a job. And if we have something called the Pied Hacker Experience Prereqs under our workshops. So this program right here that says Pied Hacker Experience Prereqs, we decided that it's enough information to get you a job and beyond, get you your entry-level job and beyond, just in this package. And we're like, well, let's just let people have this. And then if you decide that you want to get more hardcore, we have this program called the Pied Hacker Experience, where we called it 0 to Hero because that's how we feel about our customers. Like literally, I just remember like one of the first our first intern is going through the Pied Hacker Experience, never had a job before, and then goes from like in cybersecurity, and goes from didn't even go into an entry-level job, went straight into a senior level role, and is doing an outstanding killer job at it. Good job. And not the only one. There's too many shout outs. So and then also our other intern is going to show off what he's been working on. The one who's working with us right now, his name is Jordan M, for those who have caught us on LinkedIn. So that's what's going on here. And we're just like really excited about this. Basically, this is my life right now. I've just been building these things with the team, and it's been really good. It's tiring, but it's been really good. So let's see. So now that covers most of the major things I wanted to just kind of like touch on, and now I just need to go try to figure out how to check all the chats. Let's see. So I can answer questions and things. So I'm gonna check both chats at this time. So yeah, so if anyone is in the YouTube chat, feel free to ask questions. And then if anyone is in the Facebook chat, also feel free to ask questions. But yeah, so this is just more or less where we have just nosedived all of our time and energy, and we're just really proud of what we've been doing. So we're gonna just keep building and keep doing our things, and then at this time I'm going other people, so that might even be a separate stream. So I mean, that more or less covers like what does the Olympiad do. If someone would like to see some of the technical bits, feel free to ask. But I think that covers most of the stuff. If anyone wants to check out the workshop that we did early, we did a really good one. So that's where all the technical stuff is. So I'm kind of technicaled out for the day. And we're still going to be doing Free Coaching Friday for those on Facebook. Free Coaching Friday isn't going away. I mostly just I worked all night last night and didn't get a break, and here we are today. But it all worked out well. So I'll probably go ahead and do a catch-up coaching session coming up. Maybe do like 2 coaching sessions next week in the Facebook group, just because I do like doing that. Since this week, you getting all these things out was a lot of work. Next week will probably be a lot lower key and all that good stuff. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you for, once again, those who've been joining our programs, those who've checked out the Pied Hacker experience, those who've been picking up our appliances. Like we're finally getting like those out and distributed, and those who've been checking out our workshops. It's been crazy. It's been pretty incredible, and like we couldn't do this without all of you guys. And it's been a ride. And so we just want to keep providing value, keep letting us know what helps you, keep letting us know what's beneficial. And our goal is to just help and to serve and to see like what's going to help people kill it out there, so that you can basically go from 0 to hero. So at some point I'll do like a proper showcase of like this diagram right here. I'll do a proper showcase of like what this diagram actually looks like beyond it just being all these things. Maybe what I'll do is I'll show you a few of the like construction pictures of one of our production node. It's actually kind of interesting. Let's see if I can get that. Oh, actually, I do have a few pictures of how we set it all up, because it's a little bit of a jungle right now, but for good reason. All right, so this is good. I got a few things to share here. So before we finished putting some of these systems together, I decided to create something a little different, which I was pretty excited about. Let me move my face. So this right here is like, that's the green items here. And this is one of our cluster kits that we're working for like production testing and development before we even deploy into our own cloud. And like, this is just the beginning of the production cluster. This is like, you start small if you want something big. If you try to start too big, it never gets big. It just falls apart. So we're starting with the easiest way to start is the smallest thing, is just two systems. And we are creating an independent cluster that goes into the hybrid cluster. So as you can see, these little Ethernets are plugging, instead of having these go into a switch to be part of like a bigger cluster, these are just going to be their own dedicated cluster. And then interesting thing is that this being clustered this way, this makes this a supercomputer. And then we can cluster this supercomputer into a cluster too. So basically our cluster of 3 right here will ultimately recognize these 2 items as one computing unit, and it'll be a cluster of 4 is how that works. And that's the earlier picture. So let's take a look at what it looks like after I installed it. So after I installed it, notice that, I added an extra Ethernet jack, and you can set up bonding. So the way that this works is there's a type of operating system that you can use where you can take as many network, like I guess ports that the Pi will take, and I guess in this case it's 4 because you can, or 5, because if you were to plug in USB Ethernet cord into each of the USBs and then plug one into the Ethernet like the yellow one is, you can do what's called bonding with our design, with how this works. And bonding says that you can say like every single network interface will just basically increase your ability to push more data through this tiny thing. And so you can really push a lot of data through these things depending on how you want to architect it. And so right here, we just have this self-contained cluster. Now, this cluster right here, this stack, this has 6 systems inside of it. And ultimately, this will cluster into this stack of 6 systems ultimately. We're not there yet. Once again, start small. Now, this was an old development test, so this has been shut down while we're spinning all of this up. And then we'll be able to expand it into here. And you can see we have a few spare systems that aren't even plugged in and running yet. And then this little system right here is like, this is the broker that I was talking about, where this Cerberus system right here. This Cerberus system, like this is basically like cloud broker. It's like, oh, you want to talk to the cloud and do the cloud integrations? It'll just manage all that. So that's the purpose of this Cerberus system that's hanging out right there. And so these are both plugged in. So we have the green ones, and then this is one of the blue ones. It's the Cerberus system right there. And then this is our networking switch. And then, we have things booting off of solid state for better performance, because you can do that. But then we have this is where it gets interesting. So this right here is a Gorgon. Now, that other cluster has this Gorgon item in it too, but where it says Gorgon Gaze, what this is this is a NEMS Linux item, and NEMS Linux is something that allows us to get information on the network and network data. And so these Gorgon Gazes can also send data to each other. There are ways to do that, and they can work together too, which is why NEMS is convenient. And so then we use basically, so this right here where we have this other Pi, this is the original manufactured Pi that we ever put together. This one is where it says Inner Athena right here, and it says thin client. Now, most people don't know what a thin client is, I don't think. But what this is and what thin client means is that you can have this entire cluster that we're looking at, and then the satellite and the thin client do about the same thing. So the satellite is this tablet one right here, and this thin client means that it's plugged into this is where your inputs and outputs are to the entire cluster. So this would be where you plug a monitor in to your entire cluster, not just and then the satellite is this is its own independent. It networks on its own. It's off on its own island, but it has remotable access into all of the clusters that it's designed to access, and that's what a satellite system is. And so then this one, thin client, once again, your thin client is where you have this cloud system, you have all this power everywhere, and then you just put the one on your desk that lets you get the inputs and outputs to all the supercomputers. So basically this makes it so that all of these items working here together are one computer plugged into my desk, and they just all work together as one computer. And if one goes down, they're redundant, and so they kind of back each other up. And it's oh, you can't go down, never go down. And so, that way you can set up backup power on one even. So if everything else goes down suddenly from a power outage, then you can set up an emergency thing. You can even set up an emergency cloud retreat system where the Cerberus broker, if it notices that everything is going offline in the local area, and it's going off of reserve power for something from a power outage or some major failure or something bad, this broker can basically go into panic mode and be oh, let me get all of your stuff that matters to the cloud and then shut myself down after everything is into the cloud, right? Like Azure or AWS or whatever Google's is. I always forget what Google's is, but Google Cloud, whatever we'll call Google Cloud. So yeah, this is all the chaos. As you can see, there's cables everywhere. All over the place, and we're building hybrid cloud. We just decided, why not? So here we are. And once again, just thanks to everyone who's been a part of all this. And I'm going to go ahead and close this stream, and then we're going to probably do some spotlights. So I'll be back shortly enough. And